Wolfe Glick is one of the greatest Pokemon players of all time, having a Worlds win, several international wins, and he has the most wins at regionals of any other player in the world. He clearly is a cut above the rest. But what makes Wolfe Glick so strong and so deadly is his team building. He's not afraid to take risks. He's not afraid to try something new and push the game forward. Wolfe has inspired many and has created some of the coolest strategies and ideas in competitive Pokemon history. Today, me and my good friend Raghav are going to take a look at our 5 favorite and most influential Wolfe Glick teams. Raghav and I are both Worlds competitors, and we have both played this game for a really long time, and we're just huge fans of the game in general and the artistry that comes from Pokemon, and Wolfe Glick is clearly one of the best players in the game and one of the best builders. So with that, let's take a look at Wolfe Glick's 5 greatest teams of all time. Number 5, London Internationals 2017.
At the start of the 2017 format, everyone was on an equal playing field. The game had just come out and there were only 3 weeks before the first major tournament, EUIC. It wasn't a regional, it was an international championship. And this was huge, especially for European players trying to make their invite, so they had to go their all. Everyone pulled out some crazy shit. There were really creative teams because there wasn't that much to work with. And Wolfe was no different. He pulled out a masterpiece, if I do say so myself. It's one of my favorite teams of all time because it's his signature stall playstyle, his signature control playstyle. And you have to keep in mind, this is a closed sheet new generation.
Also, really importantly, this is the first time we've ever played with Z moves whatsoever. There wasn't a lot of grassroots tournaments back then, so this was just the competitor's first chance using Z moves, which is a very intricate and crazy mechanic that takes some time to master.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see how people would use Z moves. Are they going to use it on stab? Are they going to use it for different coverage? There were also other kind of Z moves with like secondary effects. But at this point, no one was really sure what the best Z moves were going to be in the game and which Pokemon were the best to use it. Because you have to remember, you only get 1 per game, and it does take a whole item slot.
Let's take a closer look at the team here, which is consisting of Salamence, Muck, Politoed, Tapu Bulu, Magnezone, and Porygon 2.
Now, it wouldn't be a Wolfe team without Parrish. It's not a dedicated Parrish song team, but it is funny that it's on the team. But what is cool is that he still has a trapping element, and most people probably didn't know this. I'm not even sure if they knew what this ability does. Magnezone has Magnet Pull, which means if you are a Steel type, you cannot switch. And this was really important because at this time in the format, the biggest demon on ladder was this little fucker called Celesteela that stalls your entire team with Leech Seed, and it's almost impossible to kill. So Wolfe was a genius for this, bringing Magnet Pull Magnezone, trapping it in, and you have a type advantage with Thunderbolt. But not only that, you have Encore and Parrish Song. So you have crazy synergy with those disruptive moves, effectively making it only Leech Seed for like 3 turns if you're just choosing to Parrish Song.
Another huge part of this format as well is the lack of timer. Timer was completely changed in this one, where there was just an overall timer, but the games could play on indefinitely. So Pokemon like Celesteela and like this Leech Seed Bulu kind of warped how the games were played. Sometimes you would even only play 2 games in a set because of how the timer works. We only had a chess timer and no in-game timer. So having something like Parrish Song on this Politoed and the Magnet Pull could stop situations like that from occurring, or Wolfe could force it with his own Leech Seed Tapu Bulu.
And that's another creative choice, Leech Seed Tapu Bulu. Of course, we didn't have much time to figure out what the best sets were on everything, but Leech Seed is such a Wolfe fucking route to go. Nobody would expect Tapu Bulu to be this stall bot with sub Leech Seed, and that's exactly what he did. In close sheet, you weren't expecting it. You get encored into some stupid move, maybe you have to switch, boom, Leech Seed, you're trapped in with Magnet Pull. The other way he punished players for not knowing what to do and playing safe was with Substitute. And I've said this for a long time, you can attest to this. I think Wolfe is the Substitute king. Long before, this season or even the season before, I think Wolfe was a master of a well-timed substitute.
Yeah, so Wolfe has 3 substitute Pokemon here, Salamence, Tapu Bulu, and Magnezone. Now, I think Salamence in particular is a really sick substitute Pokemon. Most of the Salamences at the time were running the Dragon Gem Draco Meteor, or Dragonium Z, sorry, because it was similar to Dragon Gem. So the threat of it is highly, highly scary, and oftentimes you'd find yourself protecting in front of it to make them waste their Z moves. But Wolfe abused this. He's like, yo, you're going to protect? I'm just going to press substitute. So Salaman's an offensive substitute user. Obviously, this Leech Seed sub Tapu Bulu is absolutely nuts. It just allows it to live forever, and if you make a mistake against it, if it sets up a sub or a Leech Seed, if it sets up both, you're probably cooked. And then, of course, the Magna Zone, allowing it to stall turns when it's magnet pulling, or just in general, just having that substitute can just make it live forever. It has the leftovers paired with the Grassy Surge. It lives forever. And another big thing about Bulu is Tapu Koko, Tapu Fini, and... Well, actually, Tapu Fini wasn't good yet, sorry. Tapu Koko and Tapu Lele were the first ones that were really explored and looked at. And Bulu just kind of shuts them both down pretty hard. Being able to change the terrain is huge, and it just gives this huge defensive team. Like, all of Wolfe's Pokemons, barring Salamence, really abuse the fucking shit out of Grassy Surge. They all appreciate an extra leftovers, and you'll notice, like, there's leftovers to pair with the Grassy Terrain, and you also have Citrus Berry Politoed, and of course, the Figgy Berry Alolan Muck.
Figgy Berry Alolan Muck is a story, because Wolfe made a YouTube video about how to use Muck before the tournament, but he hid the actual best set, which was to give it a Big Berry. At this point, people didn't know that Big Berries were so good, nor did they think about it with Gluttony. Muck gets down to 50% and it goes right back up. So he kept the secret sauce and whipped it out at EUIC. And Muck went on to be good for the rest of the format just because it's so good into the Tapus. Poison was an amazing coverage in this format, and it also got knockoff because the berries were everywhere. That shit is good as hell.
Knockoff is also really sick because if you do knock off Snorlax's Big Berry, this was a big interaction. If you knock off the Big Berry, he's unable to recycle it. And that was a very common strategy, was just making Snorlax go infinite, recycling his berries forever, eating just as the gluttonous king that he is, just constantly eating fucking berries. But Muck stopped that. So Wolfe had, he's ahead of the fucking game. And this became, like you said, one of the best Muck sets in the game.
The other funny thing is this really was the debut of the Lefties Grassy Terrain combo. Actually, one of my favorite combos in the game. We see it everywhere now with like Terapagos and all this other bullshit. But Magnezone was actually the first time we really saw it go super hard. And lastly, he rounded it out with P2, which ended up being, I would argue, like a top 3, top 5 at most Pokemon in the format. It's just so strong. It's the best Trick Room setter. It's so bulky, unkillable, and like in line with what you're saying about the timer and Wolfe being a defensive stally player, having Recover, Trick Room, and Download automatically makes it just a little bit stronger. It's kind of the perfect Pokemon to round out this whole thing. Gives you a little bit of speed control, and it's the glue, It's a glue-eating duck. Let's be real. It's the perfect finishing touch to this team.
Overall, this team had lasting effects on the meta. I remember playing this team almost 8 months later at the North American International Championships. I started out 0-2 and I saw myself facing this team, so I feel like it was a well-loved team by a lot of the community. We saw some people actually pick it up for the SoulCal regionals that season as well, I believe top cutting with it. So it was just overall a pretty influential team. Obviously the Muck goes pretty hard. Not his best finish, but one of the sickest teams on the list for sure, and we had to include it at top 5.
Funnily enough, I myself used this at my first regional championships as a master. I made some slight edits. I like to say I made the team a little bit better. I put Toxic on Porygon 2, and I think my Bulu was not Leech Seed. But I think it was Disable, actually. I had Disable Bulu with Encore Politoed, but it wouldn't have been as good without this beautiful skeleton that he gave us. I think it's one of the most creative teams. I think it's one of the sickest teams, and that's why personally I believe it deserves a spot in the top 5.
I feel like at this point too in Wolfe's career, he was a very defensive player and was very well known for it, and I think it just really encapsulates defensive Wolfe back in 2017.
He just came off a World Championship win.
Number 4, Charlotte Regionals 2024.
2023 Wolfe was a creative demon. He was trying out stuff like Tinkaton, Sapsipper Giraffe. He was going completely off the fucking rails. But when it came to 2024 Wolfe, I feel like he locked the fuck in. And he decided to use the best Pokemon in the game because he's the best player in the game. So he just started with a plan of using the most standard, best Pokemon he could find.
And the crazy part is, dude got even better. So after he stopped using, really creative picks, trying to break the meta in a way that was unintuitive, he realized, dude, I think I'm handicapping myself. Let me try and push these good Pokemon to their limits. So he's still using his creativity, but he just has a better baseline to work with. It's like trying to make a dish, but you're using shitty ingredients. Everything's gonna taste better if you use better produce. So Wolf decides, hey, maybe I should use this Urshifu guy. And he starts winning tournaments non-stop. So going into this tournament, it's important to look at the metagame. Dragonite Qianpao had just won the previous tournament, just some loser, turn your brain off, click E-speed type shit. Colin, it even carried Colin to a top 8 at a regional, right? The other important thing is Raging Bolt has been introduced to the format. Now this Pokemon is a fucking god. He literally ascends to the skies and has a broken move in Thunderclap. So keeping in mind, we have Dragonite, we have Qianpao, and Raging Bolt. What do they all have in common? Really oppressive priority moves. This is where Wolf's little giraffe friend comes in handy. His signature throat coat giraffe with the throat spray looks amazing into the format. He finally figures it out, how to make it work on a team. He's been trying for, I don't know how many tournaments at this point to make this guy work, but it's the perfect blend into the Thunderclap meta, into this heavy priority meta.
So if you're starting with Giraffe, one of the essential broken partners for it is, of course, Choice Scarf Urshifu. This Pokemon is deadly, it's nuts, but it's mainly set back by stuff like Grassy Glide or Thunderclap like we mentioned, but having the Armor Tail Giraffe right next to it completely negates the threats, and it's able to just spam Terra Water Surging Strikes, the pure nightmare combo of Scarlet and Violet against any enemy team Wolf finds him into.
And this is the epitome of making the best Pokemon even better. He's just trying to find the most consistent way to get off his shit, right? So enabling Urshifu with Farigiraf is so strong in a format like this where Incineroar, Rillaboom, Raging Bolt are everywhere. Of course, he has his own 2 fake outs, but being able to have that threat at any point makes the opponent play different. You don't even have to switch it in. The fact that you have it just creates so much control on your end.
Mentioning Urshifu without bringing up his fake out buddies is almost criminal. So next, Wolf rounded out with a classic Incineroar Rillaboom combo, also known as the Jungle Trio because they kind of look like animals that live in a jungle. And they just go absolutely fucking nuts. Fake out Surging Strikes, Parting Shot Surging Strikes, fake out Surging Strikes again. It's just absolutely brutal to deal with. And if you do not respect the lead or if you miscalculate once against this trio, you're going to get absolutely punched the fucking shit out of. So he was able to just enable them together with the speed control that Farigiraf provides to just create a nasty, nasty combo of Pokemon here.
And I know you guys might be thinking like, yeah, everyone knows about Incineroar, Ursh, for, even Farigiraf, but at this point, it wasn't really standard. I mean, Incineroar, Ursh definitely was, but the way he was using them wasn't common because Raging Bolt had just thrown a wrench into everyone's plans. But the real sauce, what made everything work together, is this Ogerpon Fire, which I think is one of the sickest sets of Ogerpon that we've ever seen. And I think this Pokemon's super creative. At, like, every single format, people find a new way to use it, but this is still by far my favorite one. So he's got Spiky Shield, obviously, Ivy Cudgel, its signature move, Swords Dance with the double fake out, easy to get up, and Grassy Glide. Now what's cool about this is because you have, 2 grasses, you got 2 Grassy Glide users. Swords Dance and Terra, you're at +3. This shit is a nuke. Cudgel's destroying everything, but Grassy Glide's destroying those stupid Pokemon we talked about earlier, like Urshifu, but also Fluttermane, which is faster than you. If you get a Swords Dance and Terra Fire, I'm pretty sure that Fluttermane's gone, dude. But another cool part about the Ogerpon is that it's Mold Breaker. So if they also have a Farigiraf, which is pretty annoying for Incineroar, you can actually Grassy Glide through the Armortail because of your Mold Breaker.
Finally, we have Fluttermane, which with a calm mindset, which at the time and even after was not very popular, but it just allowed it to completely and utterly body Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt already hates Fluttermane, but setting up a calm mind is huge if you just get the turn right. And obviously he has many ways to set up the Fluttermane. He has 2 fake out users. He has the anti-priority with Farigiraf. Everything just blends perfectly together here. Whether you're setting up Ogerpon or setting up Fluttermane, or even the Throat Spray Giraffe, or you're just pressing fake out next to Urshifu, he has so many tools to make himself shine as a player. This team is his paintbrush, and the battles are his canvas. None of the moves can miss. This is just pure, utter, I'm going to outplay you, Wolfe Glick, and it was straight up beautiful, beautiful to see.
Yeah, and this might not be his most wacky team. It does have a good bit of sauce though, but the reason why it's as high as it is on our list is because it literally changed the meta. The next regional in Europe, Antonio Sanchez won with the exact same 6, the exact same sets, and I don't know how much he changed because he said he literally got it from Wolf's Patreon. He used the exact same team and won the next tournament. It's like you said, it gives him the ultimate control. If you are a better player, then you have everything you need to win the game. And as Wolfe does, this was the biggest tournament of all time at the time. He had just done this like literally the year before, I think, and so he had to do it again.
Number 3, EUIC 2025.
EUIC 2025 became the biggest tournament of all time, which meant Wolfe Glick was looking to win this one. Now, going into this one, I don't think anyone would expect Perish Trap to be good in Regulation G. It really is quite difficult with the power level of the legendaries and just the amount of ghost types and pivoting moves that are in the game that you just wouldn't expect it to be able to succeed at such a high level.
Yeah, I mean, it just requires so many tools. You need a fake out mon, you need shadow tag, you need pivoting options. But the only issue is that your opponent also has Parting Shot Instant, you have U-Turn Rillaboom, and Urshifu hits through fucking Protect. That's a huge barrier for every Perish Trap team. Now, we did see Wolfe do it literally the format before, but this is different because the restricteds are back. It's like you said with the power level. So this is a huge important factor going into this tournament, is he just did this in his last tournament with Perish. Could he do it back to back?
Going into this tournament, Wolfe actually tested this team in secret in the most recent Global Challenge, which is an online international tournament with players from all over the globe competing for CP, and he decided to forego his main account and played on an alternate account, which means he didn't even get points for this. This was for pure love of the game, and he was able to win the GC and then ultimately win EUIC with the same team, which was absolutely nuts.
I think personally that adds to the hype. It's so crazy. Like you said, he didn't even attach his account because he wanted it to be secret too. It's not like he needs the invite. He won the regional before, so he has his auto invite. But to test it in secret is just absolutely nuts. I think he was doing it for fun, and then he realized, wait, there's some real sauce here. I got to bring it again. And with every Perish Trap team too, there's always his core 4. There's always his core guys. Let's go a little further and break down what is the Perish core that he uses.
So Wolfe is known for using Amoonguss, Gothitelle, and Incineroar as his main Perish supporters, if you will. Now, there's usually a Perish Song Pokemon that will actually set the Perish Song, but these 3 allow the Perish Song to go off with ease. Obviously, Gothitelle and Incineroar both have Fake Out, and then Amoonguss is there for Rage Powder, Spore, just to slow down the overall pace of the game. And then, obviously, Gothitelle is super important because of its Shadow Tag ability, so you cannot switch out of said Perish Song.
Yeah, and historically, the Incineroar has been other Intimidate Pokemon, be it Scrafty or Arcanine, and back when Megas were allowed, he also used Mega Gengar in addition to Gothitelle. So he's always used similar Pokemon that, fill the same function. But now, in Koraidon, he doesn't just have a Perish Song user. Screamtail also has Encore and Disable and no attacking moves. And while he's used Fluttermane with Perish Song to win another regional, another tournament, this time, he wasn't going for the Perish Fluttermane. He was trying to make it a hybrid offense team.
Koraidon and Fluttermane definitely add another level and layer to this team. Having both these 2 high damage, super fast Pokemon, max speed, max attack in their respective attacks, just allowed him to have just a completely off the rails attack mode that you had to respect. Obviously in finals we saw him break down the matchup with just trying to win by dealing damage. Perish Song was not even used, but I think that adds to the beauty and the creativity of this team. I think this team is truly a piece of art. I think it's just so sick the way everything blends together perfectly. I think it allows Wolfe to shine in the game because he's able to just throw you off, whether it's with offense or just playing a really slow Perish mode. And we saw that a lot throughout his stream games. He was able to just finesse his opponents and just pick which mode worked for him in said matchup and just exploit it. And most of the people at this tournament, I would say almost all of them, did not know that this team even existed or to expect it at all. He pulled off the perfect secret team heist, which is sometimes rare for him. But no one knew this was coming, and he destroyed the entire tournament with it.
I mean, yeah, that's the second half of the team of what makes it so beautiful. It's the flexibility and the genius of Life Orb Koraidon. Nobody was ready for its damage calcs. And at this point in the format, everyone was on clear Amulet Koraidon. To prevent Intimidate from Incineroar, to not take Icy Wind, stuff like that. Stat drops in general, right? But Wolfe was thinking, yo, Koraidon's already fire into Incin. Like, I just one-shot it with a fighting move anyway. Life Orb gives it so much juice. The Terra Fire Flare Blitz calcs in Sun, literally if you're neutral to it, you're dead. Close combat with Life Orb in the Sun has a chance to one-shot Urshifu, one-shot Miraidon. So he was working on damage calcs that people don't even know about. And it's actually like, okay, you can get intimidated, but that's where Gothitelle comes in. you're trapping the opponent and preventing any like damage mitigation. So I think the blending of the modes is what made this team so genius, and the fact that it was so hidden, nobody knew what this was. Nobody knew you could make something like this. Like, nobody knew that Parrish could work again.
I think the Koraidon 2 is just really huge because I think Koraidon teams were very stale. I was a huge Koraidon fan myself, and it was just kind of like Koraidon, Flutter, Ditto, Ogerpon, Raging Bolt, boring stuff, right? And Chiyu. But now Wolfe is like, hey, what if I just completely change the skeleton and completely change what you think is necessary on Koraidon and just take it to another level? Just completely taking a restricted that most people have thrown to the side, and I don't think anyone would have predicted Koraidon to take the dub at UIC.
Exactly. But the real question is, how did he even mix them together? We talked about why it's so hard to make Parrish work in this format, and how Wolfe fixed that is with the individual choices on his Pokemon. First of all, Koraidon with Screamtail and Gothitelle and Incineroar, basically having Sun on his team makes Urshifu a lot less difficult to handle. Sure, it can hit through Protect, but is it doing any damage? No. Next, the issue is the pivot moves, right? So Rillaboom with U-turn, it is annoying, but if it does anything else before, Screamtail can either Encore or disable the U-turn, preventing it from switching out. Also, you have double Fake Out, which is really helpful. The two other main choices that I want to bring up is Protect Incineroar, which is always essential on Parrish Trap teams. Like, you really want to have Protect on all your Pokemon if possible. The other thing is Taunt Gothitelle. And it's usually faster than a lot of Incineroar now because they're usually pretty slow. But being able to taunt away the parting shot is super important. And versus Pokemon like, let's say, Whimsicott or other support Pokemon, you're able to taunt them and then disable their only attacking move, leading them to struggle. And we saw him do this versus the reigning world champion, Luca Ceribelli. So it really has a lot of options outside of the explicit Parrish song that just gives him such an advantage to control the pace of the game.
Overall, this team is just so beautifully constructed, and it's so intricate. Even Wolfe himself said this team was extremely hard to pilot, and I feel like he had to be on one that day to pull off such an insane dub, especially at the biggest tournament of all time. Obviously, he's used to that, but still, this team is just incredibly hard to pilot, and I doubt we're going to see anyone pull off a team like this anytime soon. Even following his win, no one really picked up this team and found any success with it.
Yeah, for me, it is in the top 5, third no less, because nobody knew about it. It was an innovative strategy that no one had ever come up with, and it was the biggest tournament of all time where he had to play out of his mind and maneuver every single turn perfectly to understand the trades to make it work. He would sack a Pokemon turn 1, get nothing out of it, only to make both Pokemon on the other side struggle to death.
Number 2, Worlds 2016.
So you cannot talk about Wolfe Glick's teams and not mention one of the greatest teams of all time, if not the greatest team to ever be used at the World Championships. And of course, we're talking about his classic Ray-Ogre Raichu team.
The 2016 World Championships, where not only did he win his first and only World Championship win, but the other people to use the team, his best friend, Marcus, got top 4, playing Wolfe in top 4. And we have Baruch Akos, Billa, getting top 8 with the same team. Not only that, in seniors, Brendan Sang getting top 8 with the same team. In fact, he smacked my ass at this tournament. And I learned firsthand that this team is impossible to beat. It was literally the most broken team ever brought to Worlds. Nobody could beat this shit. There was maybe I think cumulatively 5 losses between them.
One big thing about the losses too, every single one was avenged by another player. So even if they did lose with the team, someone else beat them, except for one, which was Edu, ended up beating Billa in top 8, and Edu did not make finals, so Wolfe never got to actually beat that team. So that team was the only team that was positive against the Wolfe Glick team. So let's take a closer look at the team here. We have Mega Gengar, Mega Rayquaza, Hitmontop, Raichu, Kyogre, and Bronzong.
So to understand why this team was broken, we need to understand how Wolfe approached beating Zerndon, which at this point was not just the most popular team in the format, it was utterly broken. Nobody found a consistent way to beat it until this tournament, until Wolfe and Marcus revealed this to the world. And it starts with Bronzong. Bronzong was kind of the go-to counter into Zerndon, mostly because it resists Fairy and it has Levitate, and with Kyogre's Rain, it can't be touched by Groudon at all. Now Zerndon also always had the demonic dog Smeargle. With Dark Void at the time, not just Spore like we have now, not just Lovely Kiss that we saw later, Dark fucking Void before it was nerfed. So how do you combat that? You have Lumberry, and you have Safeguard, and you have Skill Swap in case that Groudon switches in and we need to reset the rain and give Kyogre a little Levitate action. So Bronzong, core piece to the Zerndon matchup, but that is not enough. You also need to go into Mega Gengar, trapping in the Zern, trapping in the weather, and then obviously Kyogre. But the best and most important part was this eject button Hitmontop. Eject button Hitmontop at this point in the format was not used at all, I think, honestly. And it was really important in the Zerndon matchup because you could switch it in on a P-Blades, take the hit, and then come directly back in with your Kyogre, taking 0 damage and having the weather control while they're completely trapped in. The other important part was having Fake Out pressure on the field and Feint and Wide Guard. It was honestly the most beautiful partner for Gengar, Kyogre, and Bronzong because you have Fake Out Trick Room, you have the ability to reposition if you're out of position, and you have Feint. You make use of your Trick Room turns. Yeah, sure, double protect on the last turn of Trick Room. Nah, you're getting Feint Water Spouted.
I think the Zerndon matchup was easily the most important, and Wolfe just dominated that matchup going into this tournament. He had multiple different plans to deal with Smeargle, whether it was Taunt on Gengar or Safeguard like we mentioned. He just had that matchup locked up, and that meant that the rest of the team had to be dedicated to beating everything else. And that's where the signature Raichu comes in. Now this Raichu set is absolute perfection art right here. Volt Switch, Fake Out, Nuzzle, and Endeavor. Obviously Fake Out, it's good. Nuzzle slows things down for Kyogre and Rayquaza, which is really, really important. Volt Switch lets you continuously pivot, allowing you to gain control of the weather. All these pieces just allowed Wolfe to constantly have weather control, whether it was Airlock, whether it was the Primal Rain with Kyogre, whether it was Volt Switching or eject buttoning out. He had it all, but then everything comes together in fucking Endeavor.
I know this is number 2 on the list, but I think if we could just have to pick one Pokemon, Raichu would be number 1. This is the most creative Pokemon I've ever seen. This is the most insane set I've ever seen. It's the most genius tech I've ever seen. So Endeavor is crucial to how this team works because this is a restricted format. Everything has really high base HP, except Raichu. So even if you're at max health, Endeavor puts things in Origin Pulse range. It puts things in Water Spout range. It puts things in Dragon Ascent range. So they perfectly crafted this Raichu to be the counter into everything not Zerndon. The other important thing to remember is he's using Rayquaza Ogre, and its main opposition other than Xerneas, which he has covered, is Thundurus. So if you lead Raichu Ogre and have Rayquaza Hitmontop in the back, you literally had a good matchup into everything else. Anything that is not Xerneas, that it was almost impossible to beat those 4. Because you had the Volt Switch to get in your Rayquaza whenever you needed against other Groudon, you had Nuzzle and Endeavor against opposing Ogre, because it has the Assault Vest. It lived a Water Spout. It lived an O-Pulse. And if it lived, it was your worst nightmare, because he was going to hit you right back with the Endeavor, and you're going to be at 2 HP shitting your pants.
Another huge thing about the Raichu and the Hitmontop was it allowed Wolfe to timer stall. Now, say what you will, we play to win, and Wolfe plays to win hardcore. And timer stall was a huge part of this format. The timer was only 15 minutes long, and every time you switched, you had 45 seconds to pick your move, and Wolfe would abuse that perfectly, able to take games that he might not be able to, or just to lock up something without having to deal with more turns, which means he could get hacks. He's like, fuck that, I'm just going to stall it out, I'm going to Volt Switch, I'm going to wait 45 seconds, and then I'm going to come in. And he used this perfectly throughout the tournament, and actually I would say the timer changed partially because of how well he abused this mechanic, and I think it was beautiful personally.
I also think it's beautiful Pokemon. I think it's a theme throughout his career, is that he mastered it. It wasn't like he was cheesing wins, because nobody else was able to do it as well as he could. Even the eject button on Hitmontop gave him that extra edge. If you watch Top 8 of Worlds, his set versus Justin Karras, timer was so important to cleaning that up. He still could have won without it, but it would have been a completely different set if he didn't have those timer mechanics locked down. And we didn't even talk about his literal second other restricted and Mega Rayquaza, because the rest of this team is so perfectly crafted. But with double Fake Out, he has Swords Dance Rayquaza, and at +2, not much is living the Dragon Ascent. Obviously, it enables the Kyogre too to be able to click water moves in the Desolate Land.
Yeah, Rayquaza wasn't too crazy on this team. The Sash Swords Dance set is really sick. He's just able to nuke shit with it. I think it was just kind of the super fast GoPro kill mode of the team. I think overall the team is just the perfect picture of offense and defense. He's able to just create so many pivots and just let himself shine as a player. So now for some honorable mentions here, we have Archaludon Rain Parrish, which was just this beautiful team that he crafted for the Toronto Regionals. He literally decided to go to the tournament because he thought the team was that good, and he was able to win a giant tournament, completely outplay Marco in the finals. Just a beautiful run from a beautiful team.
If we could, we'd put every Parrish team on here, but we can't. And the crazy thing about this team was that nobody was using Politoed. Everyone was using Pelipper. Nobody thought Politoed Archaludon was the play. Not only that, it's not Stamina Arch, which was everywhere. It was Sturdy, right?
Yes, it was Sturdy Electroshock Arch with Power Herb as well.
Not only that, he had Kingdra on the team. So just a beautiful mix of crazy Pokemon that you weren't expecting, which again, gave him an edge like it always does in his team building.
Next up is the 2023 North American Internationals team, which featured Screamtail, Dozo, and of course, Flamigo. But overall, it was a super sick team, and both Wolfe and Carson completely tore up the tournament, going super deep themselves into day 2, but just falling barely short, so it's got to stay on our honorable mentions list.
So I myself played against this team at Nationals. It was one of my only losses in the tournament as I got second, but I will say, he absolutely smack-daddied the shit out of me. We've talked about a million different Parrish Song teams on the list, but this one also made no sense. It was completely out of nowhere, and I had no clue how to play against it. This time, the Tinglu mode was oppressive. Not only that, you had to think about, fuck, he's got Dozo. Not only that, if he Parrish Songs and the Tatsugiri dies, I have to deal with a +2/+2/+2 Commander Flamigo in the military. Like, how the fuck are you supposed to come up with a plan for this on the fly? I feel like if the team wasn't leaked, the tournament might have gone differently. I'm not going to say it would have done like drastically better, but this truly is one of the most creative teams, and having that shit hidden would have been even like greater for further runs.
So finally, number 1, we have the 2012 Worlds finalist team from Wolfe himself, with Heatran and Exeggutor. Now this team is extremely special to me. When I was a kid, I printed off the article he wrote on Nugget Bridge and put it in a binder because I thought this team was so fucking cool and so beautiful that someday I aspired to be as good of a builder as he was. This team influenced the fuck out of me and many others. This team was so beautiful. He just took the game of Pokemon and team building and just made the sickest team of all time. So it has to be our number 1, even though it did worse than our number 2.
You know, and not by much. This was the start of a crazy rivalry. Not the start, actually. Kind of the end of the rivalry between Wolfe and Ray. At this point, the year before, Wolfe in top 8 had gotten destroyed by Ray, and they meet again in finals. It's time for his redemption. Except this time, he's got a couple of tricks up his sleeve, dog.
Now let's take a look at the 6 Pokemon here. We've got Heatran, Cresselia, Exeggutor, Hitmontop, Thundurus, and Terrakion. Now the team itself was completely built around our GOAT here, Heatran. At the time, he was decently popular, but not as popular as stuff like Metagross or Scizor. It was still a strong steel type, but definitely not the premier steel type.
But the trick in making Heatran work was making him as broken as possible, and that started with his synergy with Cresselia. Obviously, Cresselia has Levitate, and Heatran, he's pretty weak to ground moves, so you skill swap away that Flash Fire, give it Levitate. Guess what? Garchomp, not a problem. Fucking any ground move, easy peasy. Skill swap was seen for years to come. It won Worlds in 2015 in Seniors, and it won again in his victory in 2016 on the Bronzong. And this was the start of it all. I don't think people were using skill swap like that, and at the time, ground types were super oppressive, so this was already a crazy start for him.
Yeah, Earthquake was everywhere, whether it was on Metagross or Garchomp. It was a huge deal, and Skill Swap has so many uses that even Wolfe himself was astounded by. It was just absolutely insane how much usefulness you could get out of this. Whether you're Skill Swapping an enemy Hitmontop to steal Intimidate and just intimidate the Hitmontop, or you were stealing Prankster so Thundurus couldn't be a cancerous fuck. There were so many options to do, and it was just so sick. And also, let it be known that he had Sunny Day on the Cresselia, which not only enabled Heatran's offensive pressure, but it also removed his water weakness as well. So with Skill Swap, with Sunny Day, and with the Chople Berry, he effectively was weak to nothing.
But that wasn't the end of it for supporting Heatran. Executor was a perfect partner for Heatran. You might be thinking, what the fuck does Executor do? How is it even viable? But there's a couple of secrets that you don't think about, unless you're a super nerd freak like Wolfe.
Heatran and Executor actually have perfect synergy with each other. That means, obviously, all the super effective hits that would normally hit Heatran, such as fighting, water, ground, Executor resists, but also vice versa, where Heatran is resisting all of the weaknesses that Executor has, such as ice, flying, bug, dark. He resists all of them, but he also resists all the neutral types from Executor, such as normal, dragon, and steel. He resists all those as well, so they create this perfect switching synergy that just makes them so easy to play, and they just play off of each other perfectly.
Another reason why Executor is the perfect partner is because it abuses Sunny Day in a way that I'm still amazed that this worked at a tournament, no less the World Championships. When you set up Sunny Day, this is where Eggy's ability comes into play. When you set up the Sun, Eggy has a 100% rate to get its item back when it's a berry. So Eggy's holding the citrus berry, it eats it up. If the Sun is up, it gets that shit right back. Infinite citrus berry glitch. Now this is in line with Wolfe's strategy at the time, strategy throughout his career of playing the long game, playing defensively, stalling the shit out of your opponent, aging gracefully, while they are just losing their minds at how long this game has been.
And finally, we gotta touch on Power Swap. Power Swap is actually so ridiculous. The idea is that it just changes your attack boosts or decreases with your opponent. Now, obviously, this is huge because it has Leaf Storm. So you're able to set yourself to -2 and then set that on an opponent, like onto their Thundurus, onto their Cresselia, onto their Latios, whatever you want to steal. You can just give them the negative stat boost, which is absolutely absurd that this kind of strategy worked back then, but it's just so sick. And again, this is all closed team sheets, so no one knew this was coming. And they probably didn't even know what the move did.
As if it wasn't unkillable enough, yeah, you leave Storm, get to -2, power swap to your opponent, and you're just not dying. But it applies the other way around. If your opponent's boosting up, you can steal that shit. Now they're back to neutral, meanwhile you have a +2 Eggy, or you're just neutralizing them for the rest of your Pokemon to take care of business.
Also, it's really cool, you can power swap Intimidate as well, so if Executor gets intimidated, he can just throw that shit on an enemy Terrakion if he so chooses. It's actually so sick. Speaking of Intimidate, we have a very strange Hitmontop here with Resto Chesto Hitmontop. Now at the time, Hitmontop was trained mostly offensively, usually max attack, max HP, mainly just to do big damage with close combat, kind of just fire off a nuke with a fighting gem and then die. But Wolfe honestly trained his in such an absurd way that it helped carry him to his finish. Hitmontop was super important to how his team functioned. He's the Hitmontop fucking guy. But specifically here, he was careful Hitmontop. No one was running bulky Hitmontop at the time, which is absolutely nuts. He's a genius for this one. It was trained carefully so it would live a Dragon Gem Draco Meteor from Latios, which was the strongest hit in the game at the time. Most of Wolfe's Pokemon can actually live that. It's very important to live that hit. But so was the Hitmontop, which just completely threw everyone for a loop.
I didn't even know that was possible personally, but that makes a lot of sense because looking at the set too, it has Rest to just get that shit all the way back, but also Stone Edge, important in fighting Thundurus, which obviously resists close combat. And it's kind of a theme within this team is staying as healthy as possible for as long as possible, trying to make the game go on, but having a way to actually damage back is really important. So let's say you get a power swap off onto some shit like a Thundurus, now you can Stone Edge it, and it's probably just going to go down in 2. Or maybe even 3, but it doesn't matter because this is careful Hitmontop.
And Thundurus obviously was one of the best Pokemon in the game at the time, but Wolfe trained his ever so slightly faster than all of them. I don't understand fully why other people didn't want to run fast Thundy, but it was all about living that Dragon Gem Draco, and Wolfe abused the fuck out of that. And he said, I'm going to forego that calc so I can be faster than all of you and taunt you, because Thunder Wave is a fucker's move, and I don't want to get hit by that.
I think this is partially because of 2011, where everyone was running kind of fast Thundurus, and then by the time Worlds came around and Ray winning with a bulkier Thundurus, everyone started running kind of the bulky support set, realizing how broken Thunder Wave is. But, you know, Wolfe's never a step behind. He's usually 3 steps ahead, maybe in the wrong direction, but this time, no. This time he knew what to do. He made it Electric Gem slightly faster, nuke the opposing motherfuckers, and adding a fast mode to the team, especially with his last Pokemon, Choice Band Terrakion.
Terrakian's the glue here. All he does is damage. He's actually an adamant Terrakion, which is pretty crazy because at the time Garchomp is one of the best Pokemon in the game, and this actually will get outsped by Garchomp, which is pretty crazy. But he said, no, I want the damage and I want to hit fucking hard. So he has this fast GoPro Slayer mode that is all about dealing the damage. Banded Terrakion's crazy. It's kind of such a crazy pick. Like, it just looks so absurd on the team, but it's perfect. It gave him everything it needed. It has insane coverage. You don't know you're about to get hit with a banded CC, and it goes fucking hard.
But yeah, this is absolutely the craziest team I've ever seen in my life, and the fact that he didn't just do well, but got second at Worlds and was so close to winning, if only he knew how to target his close combats. This is easily number one for me. Well, I won't say easily just because the 2016 team is so crazy, but this is like the beginning of understanding Pokemon as art to me. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that for the video. I really do think team building and this game is an art form, and that there's so much creativity and skill involved in this. And all of his teams are inspirational, but this is the beginning for me personally, and just honestly pushing creativity to the max.
This is the crown jewel for me as well. This team is just so beautiful. It's so fun. It uses obscure Pokemon, but all of them are so well thought out and so deliberate. Whether the Executor having perfect synergy with Heatran, or the random ass banded Terrakion at the end, just to bring the damage that he most definitely needed at the end. It's just so beautiful. He found a move that no one used ever before this, really, and just abused the fucking shit out of it to make Heatran fly through the air and just beat all of his opponents. Like, I can't imagine the look on their faces round one when that guy got in the air and they're like, holy shit, how do I can't beat it now. It's actually flying. My Garchomp can't do shit, you know? It's just so sick. And God, it's just perfect, classic, old style Wolfe Glick. And it's my favorite team of all time.